And welcome to tomorrow. My name is Jamie Higginbotham. We have got an action-packed epic episode for you today. We're also joined by Ryan Caton, a Zach from the Launchpad Network, a Jared, and a Dutta. So welcome everyone into the show. Hang on. I'm going to try to share my media again. Let's see if this works. We had something happen last week, and I'm not going to be able to be a part of this. Here we go. Check this out.
T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Abort. And abort.
It didn't go. I could not personally remember the last time that actually happened. Zach, you looked it up and you said it was like a year ago or something like that?
April 28th, 2023 with a Viasat mission.
So then that got...
we got our yearly abort out of the way, and Falcon stays on Earth a couple days longer.
So it's not the fact that it aborted, right? Rockets are going to abort. Like, that was fundamentally a good thing. You want the rocket to do the self-checks. Like, you don't, be on the ground wishing you were in the air, then in the air wishing you were on the ground, right? That sort of thing. That's not the point of this story. The point is, I found myself realizing that I was surprised that there was a launch abort for Falcon. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. And then I kind of thought, that is a really cool place to be. A place where the technology stack is so stable. You don't expect a launch abort. Maybe weather and whatnot, but like, how cool and how far the program has come. So I thought that'd be kind of an interesting topic for all y'all. Oh, my volume's 1 out of 5. All right. So I'll fix my volume. I'll let you guys talk about it. But, like, is this not interesting? And then what is the state of the other programs? The Space Launch System, everything else. So, yeah, I'll hand it over to you guys for a minute, and I'll fix my volume.
Thanks. It was interesting to look on, because obviously I was watching the NSS stream. The latency difference means that we don't really know what's happening up close, right? Because Twitter streams are 10 odd seconds delayed, whatever, right? So you see the ignition, and then you see the steam from the deluge system kind of go up into the air, and it's like, and then liftoff never came. It's obviously, like Jamie was saying, it's a very rare thing nowadays for Falcon to abort after ignition, but it's obviously, the weather had been iffy. Florida weather is iffy at the moment for launching, right? But this happened after the ignition of at least a few of the Merlins, so this is very much pointing to a hardware something wasn't right there, rather than the weather wasn't right or anything like that, because SpaceX had obviously identified that specific time as kind of their best shot to launch during the iffy weather, and the Space Force, the 45th Weather Squadron, was like, this is the best time of day to launch in this weather. So I think it was Kiko Donchev on Twitter was like, yeah, we've got some hardware things that we've got to figure out. So we'll be putting the SES launch coming up before they try this Starlink again. So it looks like it'll be a rollback to the barn, maybe a little bit of inspections. Maybe, just to be completely theorizing here, maybe one of the Merlins, or maybe multiple of the Merlins had basically given up and be like, yeah, I'm not doing okay. Let's abort. Let's stand down. Let's try it again some other time.
What a question to ask! But are these all reused Merlins?
We don't know. We know some Merlin. We know Merlins have been reused more than the boosters have been reused, but we don't know exactly how much. We don't know which Merlins have been reused that much, and we don't know what boosters those Merlins are on. We just don't have that data.
I'm sure that history exists, but it's a private company, so they don't have to tell you.
Exactly.
I was going to say, it's either a private issue with that because it's a private company, or it's very much a that's for us to know, and ITAR to ITAR.
Yeah, and it's you can't. This
All
is
of us having
impossible to
favorite
like
engines,
spy
though?
on.
Yeah.
Hangar X is very much beyond the tree line, very much beyond the fence line. This kind of thing, like the fairings, we just have to wait until SpaceX drops these little tidbits of information. Like with the fairings, for example, they say, here's fairing separation. By the way, one of these fairings has just completed its X flight, making it the fleet-leading fairing, saving us $5 quadrillion, or that's the kind of thing they'll do. They'll just subtly mention that in one of their like launch posts or whatever. And it's the same that goes for the Merlins, right? So we don't know the numbers. We just know roughly some Merlins have been used quite a lot. So maybe this was a new Merlin that had just suddenly decided to give up on itself. Maybe this was a very experienced Merlin that just decided to give up on itself. Either way, all of these things have been tested at least once at McGregor, so they had, regardless if it's an engine's first launch or its last, it's been fired before. So it's interesting regardless.
Do you think if it's like a new Merlin, all of the older Merlins were like, "Don't screw this up, kid. Like, you better get this right. You better make sure this is good." And then there's that one Merlin that's like, "Hey, it's a Starlink. Cut them some slack. Come on." Like, So. That seems to often be the attitude of like, we'll do the flight leader with the Starlink because we can. So, or maybe maybe this one went past. Maybe somehow the spirit of discovery is haunting the Cape once again, and here we are, looking at a vehicle that's going to become the Bad Queen.
It's got a Diva Merlin.
So. Yes, or a diva stage 1, for all we know here. Whichever stage 1 that is, it might be the diva of the group for all we know. So
yeah, and John saying in chat there, they saying they must do all their experiments on Starlink launches, right? And well, I wouldn't really call them experiments to say, but the SpaceX with Starlink being able to be their own customer and being able to regulate their own cadence because they're their own customer, in part does definitely help SpaceX prove the capabilities of the Falcon fleet, just because the Starlink launches give them that ability to do so, right? If they didn't have Starlink, if they were only launching third-party customer flights, then they'd have launched, I think it's something like 1/3 of their flights since the beginning of last year has been customer missions, right? This other 2/3 have been Starlink launches, which means that they'd have 1/3 of the flights to be able to prove these things, which means obviously if you're flying 1/3 as much, you can't reuse as much because you're not flying, because you don't have a reason to fly. So
yeah, SpaceX is very much their own best customer.
Yeah.
In terms of that, and I don't want to. That's not a bad thing, because obviously Starlink is a very important part of SpaceX and a revenue stream for SpaceX. So, more power to you if you can enable yourself, both in terms of revenue stream and development to make that happen. So it's almost, oh man, I just tried to run through the mythology part of my mind with the thing eating itself. But yeah, there you go. That's where we are this morning. So cheers to that. So.
And T-Man Army saying in chat, I would say they experiment with trajectories with Starlink missions because we've seen steeper and we've seen more mass lofted. I guess that is a good point, but also I don't think that they would try and launch more mass if they didn't think it would be able to do it, right? Like,
yep.
This isn't the early days of the program anymore. Falcon is a very well understood vehicle, and if SpaceX thinks they can push it, they'll push it. But I don't think they would just say, "Hey, let's throw 50 Starlinks on here and see if it'll work."
Yeah, but that doesn't. I don't feel like that would cause a pad abort.
Yeah, especially if they're saying it's a hardware issue. So.
Yeah, that's not gonna have an effect on the hardware. It's just the hardware just works or it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they turn the Merlin on and off again before liftoff, or is that not a thing these days?
It just needed a software update.
Windows decided to update right at T0.
Did they pull the aero cover off of it, so that way it could maintain structural integrity?
I don't know.
Okay.
I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. And
I'll save you
we've got an
guys.
SES launch. Hopefully that one goes off without a hitch, and then we'll find out what happens. Maybe Starlink 10-2 will just turn into a cursed mission. Who knows?
This was me failing because I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. This shows like a mature platform. We can talk about other different platforms, and like this conversation went nowhere. It did. It was like that was a dud. That was a dud starter. Like we I apologize to everyone who's still here. I tried. I thought it was really interesting, right? Like how often do you see a launch abort and then you're like, oh wow, that like you go back in the day with a Falcon and like it's 50-50, right? And now we're at a point where it's super unexpected. And you can forward project that into things like Starship or Space Launch System or whatever the case may be, right? Because look, Space Launch System sat out there and they tried to launch, oh God, how many times? How many waivers did did those solids have?
A lot.
A lot. Yeah. So
Enough
like,
that everybody was nervous.
and yeah, I mean, it
More
comes
than
down
they'll
to like,
publicly admit.
yeah. Uh, I don't know. I think every time like we knew there was a waiver. Anyhow, you got Space Launch System, you've got Starship, and other systems coming online now, and we're starting to see. It's interesting to me that we've been around for so long that the Falcon program is now the mature program. I thought that was fascinating and interesting, but I think that my failure here might be that the end of the conversation is that the Falcon program is the mature program, and
Well,
that's it.
we always look back at shuttle for reference. Post main engine ignition, prior to booster ignition, there were aborts 5 times during the shuttle program. So 5 out of 135 flights.
That's actually not that
One in every
often.
25 flights. But also, I think the last one was in the early 90s, I want to say. So they had a good run there of aborts post RS-25 ignition not happening. I think the early 90s was a prolific time for the RS-25s, deciding to light and then go, no, not today. So, because I think
Those are really cool
Yeah.
videos to watch on YouTube, right? So if you're bored, just search. I think you can search for like RSLS abort or like space shuttle launch abort or something like that. And they're fascinating to watch because you just see the shuttles just sitting there swaying back and forth as the astronauts are on board, just like going back and forth, just sitting there swaying, and they're swinging the arm back to like do the emergency evac. And I don't know, I just looked at that and I'm like, man, it takes you a really long time to get that arm back. Right? If there was
Yeah.
a catastrophic failure of like one of the solids, that arm ain't helping. Right?
No.
Right? Those slides that they have at the backside of the fixed service structure, nah, those aren't useful in these scenarios. There's a very limited amount of time when those slides are actually useful.
You have to go right past one of the solid rocket boosters.
Yeah, yes. I hope it wasn't that one. And it doesn't really
Right.
matter, right? If either one of them goes, it's like, that's it.
Also,
Right?
that's what's holding you up
Yes. That's what's
by
holding
8
you
bolts.
So, anyhow, I always found those to be very, very interesting and a lot of fun to watch. There's another fun thing unrelated to this, just to bring it up. If you're YouTube searching anyhow, Space Shuttle Static Fire. If you've ever seen one of those, where they intentionally put the shuttle on the pad, anytime they had a new shuttle, they'd bring it out on the pad and they would do a multi-minute burn. I don't think it was the full 8 minutes. I don't remember, but like it is fascinating to see the shuttle there just firing its engines, just going, just sitting there and just railing on that launch pad, and it's really cool to watch.
They rarely did that because it just absolutely destroyed the flame trench.
I think they only did it anytime they had a new orbiter, if I remember right. I don't know that to be true. Someone smarter than I may have to comment on that. Maybe we should do like just a combobulated video of all these different things. Anyhow, I thought this was really interesting. The rest of the group was like, yeah, no, it was an abort. Like, who cares? So, all right. I failed. I failed at main topic.
Don't ask the engineers to talk about engineering. So-
Well, I was trying
I
to think
see-
who else has done pad aborts other than shuttle. Like,
Has a
who else
rocket-
has had
Uh,
ignition in recent?
United Launch Alliance's Delta IV Heavy has had a couple pad aborts that were definitely like woo.
Because those light the hydrogen on fire, right? And so the whole thing starts lighting on fire. Even though they've aborted, the rocket's still on fire.
Yeah, you're just sitting there going, "Oh man!" Usually that's put out by the air rushing past. Now it's just sitting there.
I like this. What about Vulcan? And then just crickets. Too soon. Too soon. Has Electron had a pad abort? I don't think it has. Doesn't matter. Like we're trying to turn this into something it isn't. I failed at the topic, so I will hand the baton over to Jared. Hey man, I tried. I thought it was interesting. I'm the only one. It's fine. It happens. It happens. I'll admit I'll cut our losses early and we'll go from here. So Jared, how about you? What excited you about spaceflight this week?
Well, we're starting. There were two things that got me excited since I was last here. Well, obviously, I want to say that the Starship flight was awesome. I didn't get to say that last week because SpaceX, I think this is the third time in a row SpaceX has launched a Starship the same week I'm going on vacation. So thanks for syncing all that up, SpaceX. I appreciate it. But also, mine's more sort of science related for the two things that have happened recently, which is that one, we lost some gyros on Hubble, some of the control moment gyros and other things in order to aim Hubble precisely. But NASA's come up with a solution, actually, in order to fix it, right? So, that fine guidance system, they're kind of working with them, and even though they only have one now, they've been able to figure out how to keep it working in what was called a new pointing mode or an alternate operating mode. So all they're going to need to do now is just have one gyro in order to work with it. And because they've developed this new mode, they now think they can keep Hubble operating actually to the 2030s. So I'm excited about that. That means more time working with JDub and doing co-observations of similar objects at the same time, which is the most potent thing that Hubble and JDub can do. And maybe, just maybe, if Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope continues on the current schedule it is, maybe we will be able to get both Webb and Hubble and the Roman telescope co-observing at the same time, which would be absolutely ridiculous. And I just can't imagine the power of three potent space telescopes like that actually doing their thing. So yeah, that's as you can imagine, a lot of us are very happy about that. My other one is that Voyager 1 is back online as well. They're finally done troubleshooting Voyager 1. Very long Ethernet cable to get out to it. There, 24 billion kilometer long Ethernet cable, and then they're having to let tens of kilometers out every second with it. But it started sending back data that we just could not interpret back in November of 2023, and basically the old Voyager team was brought back in because they had to work on the flight data subsystem of Voyager 1, basically brain surgery on Voyager 1 while it's 24 billion kilometers away, hoping that you don't mess this up, because if you do mess it up, that's it. You've just ended the longest mission in history. And luckily they were able to get it working. On April 20th, they were able to start getting actual data back from that flight data subsystem. And now the science instrumentation that they have up and running we're receiving data from them now. And glad to have it back. So we got Hubble back, we have Voyager 1 back, and both are looking healthy, and both are looking like they are going to last a little bit longer, a bit much longer with Hubble than was originally expected. We thought maybe the late 2020s, but into the 2030s we'll take it. And then Voyager 1, that's, I don't want to call it like a day by day kind of thing, but it is getting to the point now where those radiothermal isotope generators or those nuclear batteries on board are starting to get low in their power output compared to how they were when it launched in 1977. So we'll have to see how it does over the next couple of years. But at some point, probably early 2030s, if not sooner, that's when Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, we're going to just not have enough power to talk to them anymore.
Well, no. Once Voyager 1 started speaking another language, I think that was its convergence to V'ger, right? So now it's V'ger, and now it will have an all-new power source from the planet of machines, yes?
Well, if I remember correctly, first it had to go through a black hole, so it ended up at the other side of the galaxy. And then had to traverse the distance and just basically gobble up everything on the way, because, apparently returning knowledge to your creator means that you actually need to grab everything and physically bring it with you. Sort of like the ultimate road trip, I guess. We're going to go see the biggest ball of yarn, but we're also going to Ocean's 11 it and put it in a trailer and take it with us. Kind of on the way with it. So an intergalactic version of that, as it were.
So for reference, Voyager was launched September 5th, 1977, and its current mission duration is 46 years, 9 months, and 11 days.
It's fine.
Yes. And
Voyager
also,
2
I guess,
launched. Voyager 2 launched first, didn't it?
yes, it did.
Yes.
So it did launch first.
So
and
technically,
then-
Voyager 2 is a longer running mission than Voyager 1. Jared, the engineer.
So they're both running a long time. So, and both of them have a very interesting story that I would love to tell one day, because there was so many opportunities, even before they got to Jupiter, that they almost lost the Voyager spacecraft. It was a near constant set of problems and things. On launch, we almost lost one of the Voyagers. So yeah, it's a stunning program for as long as it's lasted. And it's also essentially outlasted its creator, because Ed Stone, who was one of the principal heads of the program, just passed away last week, and he was 88 when he passed away last week, and he was the original director of the Voyager program. So they're continuing beyond even those who have worked on them from the very beginning and even before the beginning. So just an absolute amazing amount of longevity out of them.
And then the news of Hubble getting extended to 2030 is great. So then the question becomes, which one will end first, the International Space Station or Hubble?
That's a race that I don't like. So
A race to the death.
Kinda.
Actually, unlike a lot of people in the field, I think that looking to private companies for both of those would actually be a really good thing to do. Both in extension of them. I don't know if Hubble's really something that can be operated privately. It's just I don't see a use case for it. It'd be very, very difficult to do that when you consider how little money is basically distributed to allow observations. I guess the best way to describe it is that it does not make sense for a private entity to take over Hubble because the funding just isn't widespread. So your actual customers don't actually have as much money as you think they do, which is a weird way to phrase it. But for space station, that would be really, really cool to have
I don't
a
know.
private entity come in. But
I think a private company could come in and create a new business model around images off of Hubble or something like that, right? Like, it doesn't have to be the existing users. There's absolutely a potential business plan there. Or just ask the NRO for a new one.
well, see, here's
For
the
the
thing. You
for
don't
their
ask,
spare of the new one.
They're
you
spare,
don't ask
exactly.
the NRO to get a new one. An NRO comes to you and
This
says,
is-
"Hey, we've got some optical assemblies hanging around that are 30 years old and obsolete for us. Would you like them?" And then you look at the optical assemblies. You see that they are far beyond anything that you have even thought about making. And you say, "These are 30 years old?" And then you say, "Sure." And then the NRO says, "Here, sign at the dotted line, but also please make sure to note this part. I will not point this optical assembly down at the Earth." So, and they go, "Okay, cool. Sounds good."
I mean, fair enough, right? Like, I don't know. I think there could be an interesting business plan for an optical platform or just an observation platform. Let's just ignore, just some sort of observation platform that humans could control. Humans, obviously, humans control it. You know what I'm trying to say? That you and I could control.
I don't feel like there's enough money in that to base a company on, though.
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, you'd have to come up with a creative business plan, but like, I don't know.
You make a
I'd say-
website.
You'd have to be really creative.
You make
Yeah.
a website with
There are a
PTZ controls, pay a membership fee, and then you get allotted the time every month, and you get to play with Hubble for 5 minutes. All gets pointed over here. All gets pointed over here.
That would be
Yeah,
cool.
Hubble.
Legitimately,
If its
there are
exposure
two companies
time
that do
was-
that right now.
Oh, Zach,
there
you're
are?
saying that there's actual companies that are doing this?
Yeah, so there's one that was developed by Sony that they're still in testing phase of theirs, but their idea is you can log in and either tell them a target you want photographed and then they'll get it when they can, or you can buy an hour slot of which you actually get 20 minutes to control it, and then the 40 minutes is for it to get in position, take the picture, and move out of position. And then there's another one that was starting up more recently that people have actually used to take pictures of Starbase. That is a satellite going over for ground observation. So, space observation, it would probably work. It'd probably be way more expensive, which I can't imagine based on the ground observation cost ones, but it would probably work. There's a lot of people out there that have a lot of money that just want to take pictures from space and say they're their own.
I mean, that'd be kind of cool. Take a picture of the star that you purchased and have a certificate of. What is that? Doesn't Hubble's mirrors optics not work towards the or? Yeah, actually,
no.
one downside of this whole business plan is that think about the amount of energy or fuel expenditure you'd have to do to just constantly be moving this telescope. Like there'd have to be. It wouldn't be Hubble, right? Because like,
Gyros.
I guess, but
Hubble
like,
does
Well, we
not.
just have
Hubble
to
does
send
not
Jared
use.
up, refuel it once a year, change out a couple gyros every 6 months, and then it's good forever.
Yeah,
Well,
but that's
that's-
other
that's-
Jared, not me. I'm not that rich. So,
That's a difficult
unless you want to
proposition.
send
Jared
me,
Isaac.
I would love to go. I'll make it happen. It's just that I need someone else to pay for it. Maybe Jared could pay for me to go, and then we can both go. And like he could,
The
I'll
first
sit in the
all
pilot
Jared
seat.
crew.
He could sit in the commander, and you could radio up Jared, and you can have two people going yes. So
That's a difficult proposition, though, because of Hubble's orbit. Like, it's not easy to get to.
no, it is not. It was right on the limit of what shuttle was able to do, and even today with something like I haven't seen the latest proposals with private servicing for Hubble, but it's up there. It's pretty high up. So
That was Shuttle's Doolittle mission.
yeah, and
Strip everything out but the fuel to get there.
Yeah, and the deployment mission for shuttle was actually the closest they've come to running out of fuel on the shuttle mission. Yeah, it is. Man, Hubble really pushed shuttle to its absolute limits.
you can challenge that statement, STS-93, but that's unfair.
Different. different fuel. That was to get to orbit. This was fuel. Period.
Oh, like the the
Or-
space maneuvering
yeah.
thrusters, the OMS pods and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Ryan, how about you?
I'm going to bring you two stories from the ISS, and I'm going to let you decide. Do you want the exciting story or the very, very scary story?
I want the very,
Yeah.
very scary story. Absolutely.
Very,
¿Por qué
very
no los
scary
dos?
story. So somehow, someone, somewhere within NASA managed to leave the wrong fader turned up on the ISS ComsNet live stream. And the other night, we started hearing, around midnight UTC, when the astronauts were all sleepy, we started hearing some very, very, very concerning words being said over the NASA ComsNet to the effect that a commander was suffering from decompression sickness, and they were basically trying to rig a spacesuit to become a temporary hyperbaric chamber, and then details for a Spanish hospital, which the ISS would be passing in 6 or 7 orbits, were then being spelled out over the phone from the only flight surgeon available who was stuck in LA traffic trying to get to MCCX. Luckily, this was a simulation that was inadvertently broadcast over the public live stream, and let's just say for the hour or two between this starting and from the official International Space Station Twitter account confirming it was a simulation, everybody was on the edge of their seats and very, very concerned, because even though it was a simulation, it sounded incredibly realistic, and the tone of voice being used, the words being used, obviously, you know, this is obvious, like they're going to train for these things in the most realistic way possible, but regardless, it was very, very scary for, you know, presumably Commander in this if this situation was real, Commander, SpaceX's commander at the moment would have been Matthew Dominic, who is the commander of SpaceX Crew 8, which is currently docked to the International Space Station. So we are obviously very concerned for crew safety and everything. And then NASA confirmed that it was a simulation. But for a good 2 hours there, I was very concerned. Everyone, you know, we all just kind of came together and sat there quietly just waiting for any kind of information, because this audio was coming through on the net and then it was just cut. So someone at NASA had obviously gone, bleep, this shouldn't be going out to the public, and then just brought that fader down. And then we were just in silence and we had no idea what was going on. So yeah, that's the very, very scary story that happened on the ISS this week, I guess. I don't know really how else to word it, but yeah, it was scary. It was a very scary insight into what actually could happen, which I guess is also kind of stating the obvious, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
What was your other story?
We got a very pretty picture.
That is a pretty picture.
Is that Steve?
Is that Starliner leaving a chemtrail?
This is Starliner's new
No,
leak.
that's a-
It
that's a
now leaks
helium.
electrons. It now leaks electrons into the atmosphere, which causes aurorae.
So you're telling me is that Steve, or is that Aurora?
Starliner's rainbow farts.
Seriously, you know what Steve? You guys know what Steve is? Or
No, I have
am
no idea. No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
It went right over my
So-
head.
So it is an actual backronym to describe something that was happening in the Earth's atmosphere. It stands for Strong Thermal Emission Velocity Enhancement, and it was basically like a supercharged atmospheric optical phenomena, like something like Aurora, and it kind of looks a lot like that. So that's why I was like, "Is that Steve right there?" So, you know, I guess I'll take my astronomy jokes and go on this way. Thanks for this week, everybody. It was good seeing y'all. I'll head on back home. So.
I think this is going to be a short show this week because I was all excited for my topic. I'm like, this is going to be amazing, and it just like was the biggest dud ever. I'll leave it like Zach and Dud. Is there anything you guys wanted to talk about?
I've been heads down at work. I haven't had space.
Yeah.
I haven't had space for space this week.
Oh my God, Ryan.
Uh,
Go.
wow. Wow. That was impressive, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
My thought, I had one thought with the first story that Ryan said, because obviously, I don't know the last time we had the entire space industry sitting on our edge of a seat like that. Maybe Starship launches, but to see the entire industry just stop and start talking and trying to figure things out was, though a very scary situation, also very amazing to see at how people were trying to figure things out and get information. It did take NASA way too long to say something, but luckily it was an emergency. I want to know what it was like on the space station when they woke up the crew in a few hours, being like, "Hey, just so you know, everyone thought you almost died, but it's okay. It was a drill that you didn't know about." So it'd be an interesting comms, but I don't think we got that. A couple stories I was looking at were from our favorite red planet. A couple of the
Pluto?
orbiters vehicles got hit by the largest radiation blast from the sun that we've ever recorded. It was an X12 radiation hit, which is equal to 30 chest X-rays at once, to the point we actually captured snow in pictures because there was so much radiation. So helping us learn more about just obviously Mars's atmosphere and how it deals with our very moody sun at times. But at the same time, we also discovered 150,000 tons of water frost on the top of a volcano, the largest volcano on the equator. So the complete opposite part of the planet you would think that you would find it. It's only there for a couple of hours a day during the cold part of the year, but with these orbiters that have been there for years, we're still finding out these very first things about a planet that we hopefully do want to go live at some point. So I guess when we get there, we have to collect ice very quickly for 2 hours a day to get some water in that part of the world. But
That story from ESA, I think they used 2 ESA satellites to kind of, because obviously you need to be over the exact point over the planet at an exact time of day under the exact right conditions, and there was only ESA's ExoMars something and Mars Explorer something, I think they were called, and they kind of cross-referenced
ExoMars
to
and Mars Express.
Thank you. And they kind of cross-referenced that exact spot over Olympus Mons and was like, we found ice on the equator. Apparently it's only like the thickness of a human hair or something though, but either way, the fact that water ice has now been found on the equator of Mars, there must have been something living there at some point, right? We must now be getting even closer to an answer of microbial life might have existed on Mars at some point.
Maybe. I feel like we just keep finding water over and over and over for the first time on Mars. And the moon, too. Right? Like,
For the first time?
It's
Yeah.
almost like that stuff gets everywhere. You just drop
Yeah.
it and it just goes everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just because there's water, does there have to be life? I don't think A equals necessarily is required to equal B. Right.
That's like correlation and causation and getting those two confused.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but like without a magnetosphere, without some sort of protection against solar radiation, just imagine the life forms getting absolutely hammered with that exact same radiation that is causing static on a camera sensor, right? Like, I guess you could, I mean, we find life in nuclear reactors at this point, so I think that's true. That's not an urban myth, right? That's a real
No,
thing.
that's true. Yeah.
Okay.
On fuel, even on fuel rods and things. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Well,
So
there's a puddle of sulfur down at the bottom of the ocean that animals have adapted to live in, and we would think that would be toxic and impossible. So
I believe there's a famous doctor that once said, "Life finds a way," right before getting attacked by Tyrannosaurus Rex. Um, anyhow, you're welcome.
finds a way.
And there it is.
Anyhow, I think 2 notes. One, like just because there's water, I'm not sure that is a guarantee of life. But 2, just because there's radiation, that there is no guarantee, like crazy radiation, there isn't a guarantee that like the life forms wouldn't figure out how to deal with that. So I feel like so here's what happened. Last week was so freaking amazing, right? Like the energy was up. We were on the high of Starliner, of Starship, Chang'e 6, I think it was. There was a Virgin. The last time the Virgin Galactic space, that particular, what was it? Eve.
Unity.
Flew, Unity, that's right. The last time Unity flew, like it was just like Electron, I think, flew. If I remember, it was just like thing after thing after thing, and now I think we're hung over on aerospace stuff, and this week is just not as exciting, and that happens from time to time. And rather than force the show to go for an additional 19 minutes with us not having anything to talk about, I think I'm going to call it here. In a minute, we will do a post show. We'll talk about. Well, I found a new tiki bar. We'll talk about Orlando. We'll talk about my back view. We'll talk about whatever we want.
Can we talk about WWDC? Because I found that exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, that is actually another topic that maybe not for this particular show because I don't have my thoughts in order. But like, I've been thinking. So AI is going to potentially be at a point where it's self-replicating around 2027 to 2029, assuming we continue to grow at the current rate. Now, everyone's scared of AI, but theoretically, we could use AI to help us design better rockets and better systems to help us get to get us giant ugly bags of mostly water to the moon, Mars, and beyond. And AI might actually be the thing that helps get us there, right? Figuring out all the crazy stuff that we haven't thought of yet, especially if we can get it like self-replicating into the system. Also, Dave, thank you very much. Dave just gifted 5 memberships of Tomorrow Space News, of Tomorrow Space, sorry, to people. So if you just got, hey man, I'm trying. So if you just got a membership, you are now eligible to watch this post show. But like, yeah, I think AI could be an interesting future for aerospace because it might help us find things. It'll just be so much faster at finding these things than we are. What happens when AI wants to, yeah. So this is going to lead into an AI conversation that like, I don't think I've wrapped my brain around it fully, so I can't speak with any level of intelligence here. And so it's just kind of this random floating nebulous idea of like, AI could actually be the thing that helps us get to the stars. Maybe.
Yeah. I just
And
hope
then
it's not
that's
Google Gemini, which is going to suggest we put rocks in our GSE.
and then it will cut off our air supply.
The thing to remember
I mean-
is AI right now is not reached super intelligence yet, right? So in the last few years, we've gone from AI being a toddler to AI being like a late middle schooler, early high schooler, right? So okay, so we're in high school, like legitimately, it speaks and thinks and can problem solve like a high schooler. But that only took a couple years. So in a couple more years, it'll be thinking like a
College
doctor. Yeah, like and then years
Or
after that,
even-
it'll be. Yeah, I mean, this doesn't end. It's not like it hits a wall. It just keeps going, and so, like, if it's
I
going
feel like
to keep
that.
going,
I feel like that's an asymptote, though. That's never going to get. It's never going to get to be perfect. It's always going to be like kind of a descending line where it never quite crosses that line.
maybe that's certainly true of us, but is it true of something that does not have the same confines as us? I don't know.
I
Maybe.
think I think there are certain confines it needs to maintain.
Such as,
Morality.
well, no, it doesn't need to. We want it to. For our sake, we want it to, but it doesn't need to for it to survive.
I mean,
Anyhow.
there's the Terminator future and the not Terminator future.
Yeah, yeah, that's just it. Like AI could be like the best thing that's happened to humanity and like opens up a world of possibilities that we can't even imagine, or it could be our destruction. And I'm not sure there's a whole lot in between. I think we have to be very careful here. But like it could be truly epic and amazing. And then that's going to create other conversations of what defines life and a whole bunch of other stuff. Anyhow, point is, I have not had enough time to actually think about this, so I don't think we can go and we're not going to talk about this for the next 15 minutes. I don't have that much logic in there. Just like, but Ryan, to your point, I would love to talk about WWDC in the post show, along with the T-Bar and other cool things that are here in Orlando. So on that note, I'm sorry it's a shorter show than normal, but I hope you all at least had a little bit of a fun time. And thank you, everyone. Like, this member slate keeps getting the name's getting really hard to read on this one. Good luck finding your name. Sorry, but they. Oh, we totally good. But yeah, the all of the members of Tomorrow who helped to make this show happen. You know, we only start with names on the ground support level, and then go up from there. But frankly, you can also get access to the member show with system support, which is as little as $1 per month. So for less than I think at this point it's just a cup of. I think it's less than a single cup of coffee, just like brewed coffee, not even anything. Just it will get you access to the member show and helps us a great deal. So on that note, hey, thank you everyone so much for watching. I'm sorry it was a weaker week in spaceflight, but you know, we'll do some cool stuff maybe next week. So on that note, we'll see you next week.